I had just left the hospital, still carrying the weight of monitors and whispered fears, when Michael pulled the car into my parents' driveway. The air outside smelled sharp, like cut grass and exhaust, but inside me everything felt heavy, swollen with dread. My daughter had been there for 3 days. 3 days. A blink for me, a lifetime for a 6-year-old who had never once in her short life been left without me. I told myself she would be fine. After all, my parents lived with my sister Emily and her little girl Hannah, the same age as Leah, built-in playmate, doting grandparents, a safe house for a weekend. That is what it should have been. The second the front door opened, I knew it wasn't. Leah stood in the hallway with her small backpack strapped tightly to her shoulders, like armor. It bulged with pajamas and toys, the bent ears of her rabbit sticking out of the zipper like a white flag of surrender. She didn't drop it. She didn't run into my arms. She just stood there, her gaze pinned to the floorboards, her lips pressed thin, her body as still as stone. "Sweetheart," I whispered, my arms already open, aching for her. Nothing, not a smile, not even one step toward me. Behind her, my mother appeared with a brightness that rang false, her words coated in sugar that made my stomach turn. "Oh, you're here. She's been an angel." An angel? If by angel you mean a child who looked like she had witnessed a crime, then yes. Emily drifted into the hallway next, her daughter Hannah pressed to her side like a shadow. Hannah grinned in that smug way children do, when they have never been denied anything, while Emily's mouth curved into the faintest smirk when her eyes caught mine. My stomach clenched, the way it always did around her. Michael reached for Leah's backpack, his voice gentle. "Ready to go home, kiddo?" She nodded once, stiff, her hand clutching the strap like she feared it would be ripped away. No hug, no chatter. None of the sparkle that usually spilled out of her when she saw us. Just silence. We left quickly. I could not stand another moment of my mother's brittle cheer or Emily's victorious smirk, but the car ride was worse. Leah sat in the back, her rabbit clutched tight in her lap, her eyes locked on the blur of trees and houses rushing by. Normally, she would talk the entire drive home, filling the air with stories about games she invented, what she and Hannah had eaten, what new adventures they had created. That day, nothing. Only silence. I twisted in my seat to face her. "Did you have fun with Grandma?" A pause, a shrug, the kind of shrug that felt too old for her small shoulders. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" Her voice, when it came, was barely audible. "Am I taking too much space?" Michael's hands tightened on the steering wheel until his knuckles blanched. "What?" I leaned forward, my chest aching. "What do you mean?" "I can be small," she whispered. "I don't need lots of toys." My heart lurched. "Who told you that?" But she didn't answer. She only twisted the rabbit's ear tighter and turned her face toward the glass, as though the world outside might swallow her whole. At home, it did not get better. Leah hovered in the hallway, still strapped into her backpack, her little body poised as if ready to leave again. "You can put your bag down," I told her softly. "We're home now." She did not move. Later, I asked her to put her toy back in the box before dinner. She froze, then dropped the rabbit into the bin, as though it had burned her fingers. Her small chest heaved, and then she broke. "I'm sorry, I didn't know it was out. I'll be good. I'll make space. Please don't send me away." I froze in the doorway. Michael was on his knees in an instant, gathering her close. "Leah, hey, listen to me. No one is sending you anywhere." But she shook her head, sobbing so hard her words came in broken gasps. Auntie said I have to make space for the real children. She said I would go back to the orphanage." The words sliced through me like glass. I dropped beside Michael, pulling Leah into my arms, her tiny frame trembling so hard it rattled through my bones. "Listen to me," I said, my voice low and steady, forcing every shred of calm I had into those words. "You are my daughter. You are not going anywhere." Her eyes searched mine, wide and wet, desperate for truth. But Auntie was wrong. My tone cut like ice. "You are mine always." Her sobs eased, but the damage was etched deep, carved into the fragile trust of a child who should never have been forced to question her place. I smoothed her hair, pressed kisses to her damp forehead, rocked her until her breathing evened out. Michael's hand rubbed her back, silent comfort. But inside me, fire roared. Emily had smirked in that hallway because she thought she had won. My parents had allowed it because they never believed Leah was enough. They thought they could break her in 3 days. They had no idea what storm they had unleashed. When Leah finally drifted into sleep that night, curled tightly around her rabbit as though it were a lifeline, I stood in the kitchen with a glass of water pressed to my lips. The house was quiet, but my mind was anything but. I could still hear her voice, trembling and small. "I'll make space. Please don't send me away." Each word burrowed into my chest like a thorn I could not pull out. Michael hovered in the doorway, his face shadowed, his shoulders heavy. He did not know whether to speak, and I did not invite him to. I needed the silence, because underneath it burned the fury I had carried my entire life. I knew what it meant to be the child who never measured up. As a girl, I thought it was normal that Emily always got the bigger slice of cake, while I was left with crumbs. Normal that she was praised for coloring outside the lines while I was scolded for straying too far. Normal that in every photograph she shone in the center while I stood at the edge, the prop that completed the frame. But it wasn't normal. It was favoritism. It was cruelty disguised as family tradition. Emily was the golden child. The one who could spill juice on the carpet and be called spirited. I could bring home straight A's and still be asked why they weren't A+. I learned to swallow it. To be useful, to stay quiet, to never expect too much. Splinters lodged under my skin, invisible but aching. Years later, I married Michael. Gentle, conflict-averse Michael, who wanted peace above all things. We tried for children, again and again, each month a disappointment, each doctor's visit a crack in our hope. Until finally, the verdict came. The odds of conceiving were nearly non-existent. So we turned to adoption. Not out of desperation, but out of faith and longing. Years of paperwork, interviews, waiting and praying led us to Leah. She was 2 when we brought her home, cautious and wide-eyed, but mine from the first moment I saw her. She grew into a storm of honesty, a little tornado of stubborn joy. She knew she was adopted. We never hid it, but she had no memory of the orphanage. To her, it was only a word, the kind that hovered in the background of sad stories on television. That was why it was all the more cruel for someone to weaponize it against her. At first, my family masked their stiffness with politeness. Forced smiles, brittle congratulations. "Oh, how wonderful," they said. "Of course we will treat her like family." But I saw through the cracks. My mother patted Leah's head, as though she were a neighbor's child, not her granddaughter. My father muttered about the baby needing space. Emily's smile never touched her eyes. And then the comments began, subtle but sharp as knives. "It must be different from having your own. She will always know she isn't really yours." Little blades disguised as observations. I smiled, nodded, tucked it away, told myself Leah had me, had Michael, and that was enough. But then, against every prediction, the impossible happened. I was pregnant. A 1 in 1,000 chance, the doctor said. A fluke, a gift. My heart swelled with joy, not because Leah wasn't enough, but because she was. I wanted her to have a sibling, a partner in life. The reactions from my family were not joy, not celebration, but something colder. "At least now you'll have a real child," my mother said, her voice dripping sugar. "Do you regret adopting?" Emily asked with that smirk I knew too well. My father muttered something about it being confusing for a child to grow up beside a stranger. A stranger, that was how they named my daughter. Each remark twisted the old splinters deeper. Emily's daughter Hannah was elevated to royalty in their eyes, her drawings framed on the fridge, her little triumphs celebrated like coronations. Leah's work discarded, her accomplishments reduced to politeness. Polite, as though that was all she could ever be. Leah noticed. Of course she did. Children always notice. Her shoulders hunched a little when Hannah was praised. Her smile faltered when her own work was ignored. She did not speak it, but it lived in her eyes. Then came the scare. 3 days in the hospital, hooked to machines, fearing I would lose the baby before I even had the chance to meet him. 3 days that should have ended with relief and gratitude. But in my absence, my family carved into Leah the cruelest lie of all, that she was not enough. And when I brought her home, trembling, backpack still strapped as if she belonged nowhere, I realized the truth. My fear had given way to rage. Saturday morning sunlight spilled across the kitchen floor, but inside me it was only storm. Leah was off at her dance class, twirling to nursery rhymes and blissfully unaware of what was about to happen. That was good. What I had planned was not for her ears. Michael drove, his hands tight on the steering wheel, jaw clenched, eyes fixed straight ahead. "Are you sure about this, Julia?" he asked softly. I turned toward him, very pregnant, very tired, and very much done. I gave him the look of a woman who had been pushed beyond her breaking point. "Yes, I am sure." He closed his mouth, the smart choice. By the time we pulled into my parents' driveway, my stomach wasn't trembling with nerves. It was buzzing with rage, hot and steady, like a current in my bones. Everyone was there. My mother, fussing with a plate of cookies as though she were auditioning for best grandmother. My father, arms crossed, a silent wall of disapproval. Emily perched on the couch like royalty, her husband beside her nodding as though his life depended on it. And Hannah sprawled on the carpet with crayons, soaking in applause for every scribble. On the surface, it looked like family. Underneath, it was rot. I didn't bother with greetings. "What did you say to my daughter?" I asked, my voice sharp as broken glass. The room stilled. Even Hannah stopped coloring. My mother looked up first, her smile already pasted on like icing. "Julia, don't be dramatic." Leah misunderstood. I let out a humorless laugh. Misunderstood? Because she came home sobbing that her aunt told her she had to make space for the real children? Emily's smirk twitched wider. She was in Hannah's space. She needs to learn boundaries. "Boundaries?" I snapped. "She is 6. The only boundary she should be learning is not to eat paste." Michael shifted, ready to step in, but I silenced him with a raised hand. This was mine. "You are too sensitive," my father said calmly. "Everything feels bigger because of the pregnancy." Ah, yes, the classic family tactic. Gaslight me into doubting my own ears. Sensitive? I tilted my head. Funny. I thought sensitivity was refusing to tell a child she is disposable. "No one said that," Emily fired back. "Really? Because Leah told me her aunt said she would go back to the orphanage. Does that sound like a bedtime story to you?" Emily flinched, just slightly, but enough. Her husband squeezed her knee, his role as her emotional guard dog firmly intact. "We didn't mean it literally," my mother rushed in, her voice syrupy sweet. "It was only to make her behave." Behave. That word, their favorite shield. You told a child, who has no memory of the orphanage but knows enough to fear it, that she could be sent back. And you thought that was okay? The silence was louder than shouting. Emily's mask slipped, just enough. "Stop pretending Hannah and that girl are equals. They are not." There it was, the truth out loud. My father did not flinch. My mother did not gasp. Her husband nodded like she had just spoken some sacred truth. I sat back, calm now, almost cold. "Thank you." "For what?" my mother asked, frowning. "For finally saying it." In that moment, clarity settled over me like ice water. They would not change. They would never see Leah as theirs. They had never even seen me as enough. Michael's voice broke the silence. "They will never change, Julia." "No," I agreed. "Which is why they will never see my children again." My mother gasped, her hand pressed dramatically to her chest. "Don't be ridiculous. We are your parents." "Exactly," I said flatly. "And parents don't treat their children this way." Emily scoffed. "Grow up. You have always been jealous." Jealous. The word they had wielded against me since childhood. I smiled thinly. "Jealous of what? That you tell a 6-year-old she is not real family?" "Congratulations, Emily. Gold star." Her face flushed crimson. We left without touching the cookies, without saying goodbye, without glancing back. The drive home was silent, but not heavy. It was clean, final. Michael's jaw was tight. "What now?" "Now," I said, staring out the window. "We cut them out." "All of them?" "All of them." They wanted space. I would give them more than they could imagine. That night, after Leah was tucked in with her rabbit curled against her cheek, I sat at the kitchen table with my phone glowing in the dark. The family group chat blinked at me. Years of guilt trips and photos of Hannah, endless reminders of dinners where Leah was overlooked and I was expected to swallow the ache. With one swipe, I was out. Gone. No announcement, No explanation, just silence. Instead, I started something new. A thread with Michael, a couple of cousins I trusted, friends who had become chosen family, people who loved us without conditions. That was the group that would matter. And in that space, I began planning my baby shower. This time, I would not beg for a seat at a table that had never been set for me. This time, I would build my own. The phone calls began almost immediately after the invitations went out. My mother's voice came shrill through the line. "How dare you exclude us? We are your parents." Then Emily, nastier, spitting venom like always. "You are pathetic, hiding behind that girl, poisoning her against us. You will regret this." My father was calmer, but no less cutting. "This isn't how family works. You do not cut people off." Really? Because they had been cutting me off in pieces since I was old enough to understand. Slice by slice, moment by moment, until all that was left was their version of me, quiet, grateful, disposable. When I stopped answering the calls, the texts came, long paragraphs dripping with manipulation. "We love you. We want what is best. You are twisting things." I muted the thread. Let them shout into the void. But they did not stop there. They reached for cousins, neighbors, anyone who might listen. "Julia has lost her mind. She is unstable. It is the pregnancy. She banned us from the shower out of spite." A cousin called me, sounding uncertain. "Julia, your mom said you would not let them come. Is that true?" "Yes," I answered, my voice steady. "But she said it is because you are unstable." I snorted. "She told my 6-year-old she was not real family, that she would be sent back to the orphanage. That is why." Silence on the other end. Then a soft, stunned, "oh." Word traveled. And with every, "oh," another seed of doubt was planted against the story my parents spun. When the day of the shower arrived, the house glowed with warmth. Streamers hung across the living room, a cake from my friend Sarah sat proudly on the counter, and friends filled the space with laughter. Leah darted among them, handing out napkins with the pride of a hostess, introducing herself as the soon-to-be big sister. She beamed when people called her helper, when they called her the best big sis. For once, she was not an afterthought, she was radiant. I wanted to freeze that moment, to hold it safe forever. Then the doorbell rang. Michael's eyes met mine. His head shook slowly, already knowing. Still, I opened the door. And there they stood. My mother with a bakery cake sagging under too much frosting, my father silent as ever behind her. Emily swept forward like she owned the threshold, her husband trailing with an oversized gift bag. The room quieted. Some guests had not realized they were not invited. Now, their presence raised questions hanging thick in the air. "Why not?" My mother's smile was all teeth. "Surprise, we could not stay away. Family is family after all." Because what was I going to do? Slam the door in her face while she held a cake? Not yet. So I stepped aside. They walked in as those saints entering a chapel, their performance polished. My mother handed the cake to Sarah and immediately announced, "This baby will bring the family together properly." Properly. That word landed heavy. Guests shifted, eyes darting, discomfort growing. My mother's charm was seamless, Emily's posture unshakable, but the cracks began to show. I heard her murmur at the punch bowl, "Hannah has been so excited. She says she will teach the baby everything. It is different, you know, when it is blood." Blood. The word clung to the air like smoke. And then it happened. One of my friends knelt to Leah, smiling warmly. "You must be so excited to be a big sister." Leah's face lit up, her pride spilling out in a shy nod. And Emily, leaning toward her husband but far too loud, muttered, "Please, she is not even a real sister." The room froze. Leah's smile collapsed, and my chest turned to ice. The air went still, brittle as glass. Leah pressed herself against my side, her small fingers twisting into my dress as though she could anchor herself to me. Her rabbit hung limp in her other hand, its ears bent under the weight of the moment. I felt the tremble of her body, sharp and fast, and every fiber in me screamed to shield her from the words that had already cut too deep. Emily realized too late that the room had heard her. She straightened, eyes darting, her lips fumbling for a save. My mother jumped in first, her voice syrupy. "That's not what she meant." But it was too late. "Did you just say that?" my cousin demanded, her voice sharp with disgust. Another guest shook her head, eyes wide. How could you say that in front of her? Emily's face flushed scarlet. You are twisting my words. This is ridiculous. Michael's voice cut through the room, steady, low, but carrying the weight of a hammer. It's time for you to leave. My father stepped forward, his face tight, his tone measured. You are overreacting. We didn't mean it like that. I barked a laugh, bitter and dry. Overreacting? My daughter came home sobbing because you told her she had to make space for the real children, and here you are proving her right. My mother's mask cracked. Her voice rose, shrill, trembling at the edges. We are your parents. You cannot just cut us out. Watch me. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. Guests stared at them, lips pressed tight in disapproval. Every pair of eyes in that room had seen it. There was no twisting left to do. The performance was finished. Emily tried again, her words sharp, desperate. You have always been jealous. You are pathetic. No, I said, my voice calm now, almost frighteningly so. I am done. Michael stepped forward, his face carved of stone. She said leave. And for once, they listened. They sputtered excuses, backpedaled, but it did not matter. They walked out, the sagging cake abandoned on the counter like a joke no one laughed at. The door slammed behind them, and the house let out a collective exhale. But I didn't, not yet. Because I knew this wasn't the end. It has been almost a year since that day, a year since the baby shower became a line in the sand that could never be erased. A year since my parents, Emily and her husband, have seen me, Michael, or Leah. A year since they have laid eyes on the baby. They have tried, of course. Days after the birth, messages flooded my phone. We want to meet the baby. Let's put this behind us. Behind us? As if the words they carved into my daughter could be buried under a blanket of denial. Then came my father on the porch, holding a stuffed animal in his hands, shuffling awkwardly. Michael shut the door before he could speak. And then, silence. Not because they gave up, oh no, because people began to talk. The story spread faster than I ever could have spun it. What Emily said, what my parents allowed. How they stood still while my daughter cried. The truth seeped into the cracks of the family tree and spilled beyond. Friends who once gave them the benefit of the doubt cut ties. Cousins stopped defending them. Neighbors avoided them in grocery aisles. Their attempt to paint me as unstable collapsed into ash. Their legacy, now whispered in kitchens and backyards, was this: they were the ones who told their granddaughter she was not real family. Meanwhile, my life grew lighter. Leah no longer whispered apologies for existing. She no longer begged to make herself small. Instead, she beamed when she introduced herself as a big sister. She laughed louder, danced harder, took up space as though it finally belonged to her. On the fridge hangs a photo. Leah cradling her baby brother, her grin stretched wide and unshakable. That is my family, whole, enough, untouchable, and no one is ever being sent away. I still remember the night after the baby shower, like it was etched into stone. The house smelled faintly of frosting and tape from decorations we had just torn down. Leah had fallen asleep on the couch, curled into Michael's side, her rabbit tucked firmly under her chin. Her face was calm again, free from the tremors of earlier. I sat at the table staring at the sagging bakery cake my mother had abandoned, its frosting sliding like a melted mask. It was the perfect metaphor for them. Sugar on the outside, spoiled underneath. Michael poured me tea and slid it across the table, his voice low. They will come back, he said. You know they will. I nodded. Of course they would. But I had already decided they would never cross our threshold again. They had wanted space. Now they had it. Weeks turned into months, and the silence became its own strange kind of peace. At first, my phone buzzed everyday calls from unknown numbers, messages from relatives carrying their words. Julia, maybe you should talk to them. Julia, they didn't mean it. Julia, they are family. I answered each one the same way. Family is not the people who break your child. Family is the people who make her feel whole. Slowly, the noise died. My mother stopped calling. My father stopped showing up. Even Emily's fury seemed to run out of steam when she realized the audience was gone. They had burned themselves out. And in their ashes I found something I had never known before. Quiet. That quiet gave Leah room to breathe. She no longer flinched when I asked her to put away a toy. She no longer whispered that she could be small. Instead, she asked to hang her drawings on the fridge and insisted her brother needed to hear her bedtime stories too. She stepped into her role as big sister with the kind of pride that made my chest ache in the best way. And I changed too. For years I had carried the weight of being the forgotten child, the one who never measured up. I had swallowed my parents' favoritism and Emily's sharp edges until I almost believed them. But cutting them out was like cutting a chain. For the first time, I realized I was not weak for leaving. I was strong for choosing something better. The world outside noticed. At birthday parties and school events, people whispered, "That's the family who told their granddaughter she wasn't real." They lost friends, respect, their place at the center of every gathering. Their absence became their punishment, their silence, their legacy. And still, they tried small cracks of entry. A birthday card slipped into the mailbox with no return address. A package on the porch with baby clothes. Michael and I never opened them. They went straight into the trash. Some might call it harsh, but to me it was the only way. You cannot poison the well and then expect to drink from it again. Almost a year later, I stood in the kitchen on a Sunday morning, coffee in hand, watching Leah twirl her brother around in a dance she had made up. His giggles bounced off the walls, her hair spun in the sunlight, and for once the picture was clear. This was my family, complete. No shadows, no splinters, no begging for space at a table that was never meant for us. I thought of Emily's smirk, my mother's syrupy words, my father's silence. I thought of all the years I bent myself to fit their definition of love. And then I thought of Leah's smile now, wide and unbroken, and I knew I had chosen right. Because love is not measured by blood, or by who gets the biggest slice of cake. Love is measured by who shows up, who protects, who refuses to let a child believe she is disposable. And in this house, with Michael's steady hands, Leah's bright laughter, and my baby boy's sleepy coos, love is the only measure that matters.